of the accursed things. Okay, the children of Israel, but specifically Achan. And if you want to get even more specific, Achan, the son of Carni, the son of Zabdi, the son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah. All right, number 2. How many men went up to attack Ai? About 3,000. Number 3, how many were struck down by the men of Ai? About 36. Number 4, what did Achan take? Okay, the beautiful Babylonian garment, 200 shekels of silver, and a wedge of gold weighing 50 shekels. Number 5, how was Achan punished? They stoned him with stones, and then burned him with fire, and then put rocks over top of him. All right, number 6, what did the Lord instruct Joshua to take from Ai? The spoil and the cattle, to take it as booty for yourselves. Usually it was taken to put into the treasury of the Lord. But for whatever reason, God told him on this occasion, take it for yourselves. All right, number 7, what did the Lord say to lay behind the city? An ambush, a military maneuver, okay, to take them by surprise. Number 8, how many people of Ai fell? 12,000 men and women. All right, number 9, what did Joshua do to the king of Ai? Hanged him on a tree until evening, and then they left the corpse at the entrance of the city, and the great heap of stones raised up over top of the body.
Wasn't all the people of Ai killed?
I believe so.
And you say 12,000, I think that
Right.
all of them.
If not, some may have run. They didn't necessarily chase after them when they took the cities, but if they stayed and fought, they were killed. Yeah. All right, then number 10. What type of stones were used to build the altar on Mount Ebal? Right. Whole stones over which no man has wielded an iron tool. And this was commanded back in Deuteronomy chapter 27, verses 5 and 6. You can see that command from God back there. Any questions, things that we need to go over again on the reading review? All right. Discussion. Question number 1. Who initially suffered the consequences of Achan's sin? What does this teach us about pain and suffering? Okay.
Suffered, but even today, we may have loved ones who are killed in war, and the consequence of that is pain and suffering to who's left behind. And so it's a result of other people's actions that not ours that may cause us pain and suffering.
Right. The result of other people's actions. We need to keep that in mind. The things that other people do affect us. But on the flip side of that, the things that we do, they affect other people as well. So we need to be very careful that we don't do things that will cause other people pain and suffering. All right? Any other comments? Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We have to take other people into consideration. Absolutely. At the advice of the spies, Joshua sent about 3,000 men to attack Ai. In that effort, about 36 of them were struck down. There's no indication in the scriptures that any of those men had sinned in the manner of Achan, or that they were even aware of Achan's trespass. Yet they suffered because of his sin. The record states the children of Israel committed a trespass against the accursed things. For Achan, the son of Carmi, the son of Zabdi, the son of Zerah of the tribe of Judah, took of the accursed things, so the anger of the Lord burned against the children of Israel. One man sinned, but the whole of Israel suffered. Why did they suffer? Ai was small. They should have been easily handled, but Israel was missing a key component, the key component of their prior victories. God wasn't with them. Here's where you have faith being overconfident, and faith can be overconfident. If God had been in the midst of the camp, they could have handled it. They could have done it, but God's presence wasn't there. They did not have God's fellowship. It didn't matter how many or how few they sent up in this battle. They could have carried the whole nation of Israel, the entire army. They still would not have won. How tragic for God's people to be defeated. Whenever God's people are running from the world, from things that are wrong, it's because there's a lack of purity. There's a lack of holiness when the world is overtaking the church. There's something missing in the church. God reveals that his presence will not return unless the sin is dealt with. Therefore, the children of Israel could not stand before their enemies, but turn their backs before their enemies because they had become doomed to destruction. Neither will I be with you anymore unless you destroy the accursed from you. He tells Joshua, in essence, if you don't take care of this, I'm simply not going to be with you any longer. The answer to the problem is correction. God would identify the problem. They had to correct the problem. There really was no need for Joshua to get down on his knees, to lay down on his face, to pray or to complain or whatever he wanted to do at this point. God said there is a problem. It needs to be handled. When we have problems that need correction, where there are things that are wrong, unholy living, whatever it may be, the solution of those problems will not be handled simply by saying words, simply by prayer. Prayer is important, and I'm not minimizing the need to go to God to confess our trespasses, to ask for forgiveness, but if it's not coupled with correction, with repentance, then you're wasting your breath. We must act upon our sins, against our sins. We have to face the problem. We have to correct the problem. And so what do we do about it? When we look at this incident in Joshua chapter 7 and 8, we have to look at how this applies to us, because this is recorded for our admonition. This is recorded for us to learn from it. So we need to ask ourselves some questions. Number one, am I hindering the church from growth? Look at the location of this building on Highway 90. There are cars driving by here constantly, all day, every day. Look at the opportunities that we have around us every day. Whether you're at work or at school, in the neighborhood, what prevents growth? Now, we've had some growth. And again, I don't want to minimize what we have experienced. But have we reached our true potential, our full potential in God? Is there sin that needs to be dealt with in your life that's affecting the congregation as a whole? Remember, Achan's sin was hidden. It was personal, but it still had consequences for all of God's people. What's Paul say to the church at Corinth? When they were dealing with sin in 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 6 through 8. Now, the specific sin in this context was of a sexual nature, but he expands it later in the chapter to include a whole host of different types of sins. He says, do you not know? First, he says, your glorying is not good. Do you not know that a little leaven leavens the whole lump? Therefore, purge out the old leaven, that you may be a new lump, since you truly are unleavened. For indeed, Christ, our Passover, was sacrificed for us. Therefore, let us keep the feast, not with old leaven, nor with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. If we don't get rid of the sin, the church will be hindered. We have to take care of whatever sin may be in our personal lives so that God's kingdom can flourish in this area. Thoughts, questions, comments? All right. Number 2. What was Achan's sin specifically? What did he identify it as? And then what do the scriptures teach about this sin? Covetousness. He was taking those accursed things that God told him not to take of. And so in the sense, in essence, he was stealing from God. Right? So what do the scriptures tell us about covetousness? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, his intention was not to bring harm to the children of Israel. But he did. But he saw these things as harmless, as something that, wasteful to throw it away, right? God had a purpose, and he should have listened to God. Even if we don't understand the purpose, we need to listen to God. Robert?
One reason he took the Babylonian garment because he wanted to look like he had a more prominent status among others.
Yeah.
Of course, the shekels, silver, and gold also had to do that. I want to read James chapter 1, verse 15. 13 through 15. It says, let no one say when he is tempted, I am tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he himself tempt anyone. But each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own desires and enticed. And when desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, brings forth to death, spiritual death.
Yeah. We need to control our desires. Whether we're talking about physical desires, material desires, we need to bring those things under control. The love of money, right? You see all this silver and gold, it's not going to hurt anybody to take just a little bit. You got to control that thought. You got to bring that thought under captivity to Christ. You have to control it. I think it's really interesting. Coveting is forbidden under the old law, the Ten Commandments. Exodus 20, verse 17, you shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, male servant, female servant, his ox, his donkey, anything that is your neighbor's. The first sin that God's people committed as they got into the land of Canaan, that's recorded for us, the sin of covetousness. That's exactly the first sin that's recorded in the book of Acts that God's people committed after the church started, Ananias and Sapphira. They were killed by God. Both instances. Achan was stoned to death. Ananias and Sapphira were killed by God, miraculously died before the Lord. And covetousness remains a major problem for God's people still today. Colossians chapter 3, verse 5, Paul says, therefore put to death your members which are on the earth, fornication, uncleanness, passion, evil desire, and covetousness, which is idolatry. And I find it very interesting that the first commandment of the Ten Commandments, Exodus 20, verse 3, deals with idolatry. You shall have no other gods before me. The last commandment, Exodus 20, verse 17, deals with covetousness. And the Apostle Paul connects those two together. Jesus said in Luke chapter 12 and verse 15, take heed and beware of covetousness. For one's life does not consist in the abundance of the things he possesses. Covetousness is specifically named among those sins that will prevent one from inheriting the kingdom of heaven. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 9 and 10. Paul says it should not even be named among you as fitting of saints. Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 3. Covetousness is a disqualification for the office of an elder. 1 Timothy 3:3. It has led many to condemnation. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 6 and following. Read about that, the need for contentment. Godliness with contentment is great gain. We brought nothing into this world, we'll take nothing out. Having food and clothing, with these we shall be content. Those who desire to be rich, we need to control those desires, right? Those who desire to be rich will fall into temptation, into snare, into many foolish and harmful lusts which drown men in destruction and perdition, for the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil, for which some have strayed from the faith in their greediness, and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. Let's beware of covetousness, greediness, uncontrolled desire for material things. Yes?
I know that several probably mentioned as a warning. I'm not quite so sure. I think it's one of the Gospels is mentioned as well. I can't remember for certain. Fairly significant event. Like I said, it's brought up.
Yeah.
Later on, as a warning.
Yeah. we've got to pay attention to the Old Testament, folks. There's so much to gain from what God has recorded for us. We've got to pay attention to the things that happened, why they happened, and how we can prevent ourselves from falling into the same traps. Any other thoughts? All right, number 3. Did Achan's family perish with him? Now, the reason for this question, there are some who say that it was just Achan, and that the grammar allows for that type of understanding. So, just your opinion. Did Achan's entire family perish with him in this instance? Probably, yes.
I'll give you more.
Okay. Yeah, the back page needs more than one answer.
Deuteronomy 24:16 prohibits innocent people from being put to death for a relative's crime. However, the entire family of Achan took the items, so they therefore were accomplices in his sin. The use of the word them twice in Joshua 7:25 supports that the family was stoned and burned also. If you go back to Moses, when the Israelites were wandering, I can't remember his name, but didn't he take an idol?
We're talking about Korah? No, he was the rebellion.
They took something into the camp, and Moses found out. Him and his entire family, weren't they swallowed? Didn't the earth open up?
No, that's Korah. Yeah, but I don't think the family. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look.
It was the whole family.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. It was? Okay.
So,
yeah.
God, that was the punishment. So I would think since Achan's family knew, they got the same punishment too.
Okay. All right. So Deuteronomy 24:16, which Robin brings up. Fathers shall not be put to death for their children, nor shall children be put to death for their fathers. A person shall be put to death for his own sin. And if you look at the book of Ezekiel, I think it's chapter 18, talks about you don't bear the guilt of your father's sin or your son's sin. You only bear the guilt of your own. Some have tried to reconcile the inspired passage of Deuteronomy 24 with the account of Joshua 7. We also have in Joshua 22, Joshua recounting this event. It says, did not Achan commit a trespass in the accursed thing, and the wrath fell on all the congregation of Israel, and that man did not perish alone in his iniquity. One writer reasons that the plural pronoun them in Joshua 7:25 may refer grammatically only to his possessions. Joshua 22:20 may refer to the 36 men who perished in the battle because of Achan's sin. But, as Robin pointed out, the family had to know what he had done. Whether they were aware of him doing it as he did it or not, he hid it in the tent. He buried a hole in the ground inside the tent. You can't do that in secret. So they were accomplices, whether they helped dig the hole or not. Having knowledge of the sin and not reporting it would make them accomplices in the sin. And so they were either aware or they helped with it. Now, the scriptures do not explicitly state the extent of the family's knowledge, but we can infer that they did, at the very least, know about it. Yes?
The inference that I get from this is not only that it was Achan, they took his, then Joshua together with all Israel took Achan, son of Zerah, the silver, the robe, the gold wedge, his sons, daughters, his
so, in my estimation, the inference is everything that he owns,
Yes.
which is not uncommonly linked with, when he sent him out, when he was sending him out to battle, you must purge the evil from among you.
Right.
Get rid of it all of it.
Right.
And I think, and it's not just in battle, but it's in other instances like this. You must purge the evil from among you. And so I think there's ample evidence
Yeah.
in the biblical witness that that it was he and his entire family, everything that he possessed, it was all burned. They were struggling to burn.
Yep. Yeah. And that's what you find just about any commentary you look at. I found this one line which said it might not be, so that's why I presented the question. I do believe that it was the entire family as well.
Well,
Yep.
there was whole cities that God ordered destroyed because of sin and disobedience to Him, and we know that today, He does deal in that respect. Each individual are responsible for our own sins, but it appears, from what I get from this whole family was killed and destroyed according to some interpretations of the scriptures.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. All right. Number 4. Can sin be hidden from God? What other scriptures relate to this truth? No.
Hebrews 4:13.
Okay.
There's no creature hidden from his sight. All things are naked and open to the eyes of him to whom you must give again. There's some Old Testament references, 2 Chronicles 16:9. Eyes of the Lord run to and fro throughout the whole earth. And then there's similar language in Psalms 33:13-15, Psalm 90, verse 8, and Proverbs 15, verse 11.
Okay. Anybody else have more?
Also, was pretty difficult is hidden from God's hand. So,
Yeah.
even though you can be doing all these crazy things and disobeying when I want, I still see what you're doing. My eyes are not able to see it, that's why I see it.
Right. Yes.
It's not just the sin of the saved, the Christian, the woman at the well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All sin, not just ours.
Right. Right. You look at what Jesus tells her in John chapter 4. He knows. She was trying to hide that information from him. Or she didn't think it was important or relevant to their conversation at least. But he knows. And so he brought it out. Yeah. Achan, he was able to hide this sin from Joshua. He hid it from the tribe, from Israel, but it's not hidden from God. Whenever this announcement was made, God said to Joshua, something's wrong in the camp, somebody is not doing right. How do you think Achan felt? Look at all of these people all around. They're never going to be able to pinpoint me. I did a pretty good job burying that stuff. I don't have anything to worry about. And God said, let's get everybody together. They start with the entire nation. They came down to the tribe. Still, look at all the people. Achan probably felt, you know what, there's still too many people just in the tribe. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to get away with this. God came down to the family. That's getting pretty close. All the appeal of that gold and silver, that beautiful garment, starting to lose some of that appeal now. Gotten close enough to home that he could just feel that it's a matter of time now before he is the one who is identified. I'm the one they're going to put the finger on, and then they call his name. That ought to be a solemn warning to us. Again, these things are recorded for our learning, for our admonition. We go through life, our lives may be covered up as far as the brethren are concerned. We may think that there's nobody that knows. We need to remember that before we pass on to our eternal reward, there's that all-seeing eye that knew exactly what Achan had done, had seen every move that he made. And it's hidden from everybody else, but it's not hidden from God. Can we visualize the tragedy of coming to stand before God in judgment, thinking that things in our life that were not right had been hidden? Nobody knows them. And then, just like Achan, when it's too late, for God to say, yeah, you're the one. I know what you did. You can't get away with it. Robin brought out some of the scriptures. I have a few others. Psalm 32 is one of the psalms that David wrote after his sin with Bathsheba. And he talks about how it was eating away at him. He says, when I kept silent, my bones grew old. Through my groaning all the day long, for day and night, your hand was heavy upon me. My vitality was turned into the drought of summer. Don't ignore your conscience. If it has been properly trained, that's God trying to get you to wake up from your sin and get rid of your sin. Proverbs 28:13, he who covers his sins will not prosper, but whoever confesses and forsakes them will have mercy. Ecclesiastes 12 and verse 14, God will bring every work into judgment, including every secret thing, whether good or evil. 2 Corinthians 5:10, we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that each one may receive the things done in the body according to what he has done, whether good or bad. If you've got sin in your life, secret sin, public sin, whatever sin, take care of it before it's eternally too late. Last question. Was God's command to destroy the people of Canaan, Jericho, Ai, etc. immoral? Right?
Divine justice against people who work abominations in the sight.
Divine justice. So it is not immoral, it is divine justice. Thomas?
God commanded it. It's not immoral. God ordered the destruction of the Canaanites because of the corrupted influence they would have if their false religious system were allowed to survive. We know that when we look at some history in our world today, World War II, the bombardment of the German citizens was something that was commanded to do in order to push forward. If that hadn't been done, then there's no telling for us to make a system today, then there's no telling what the world would look like today. And was that immoral thing? No, I don't think it was.
Okay.
It was something that had to be done. And did it create collateral damage? Did it kill innocent people? Yes, as a result of this, it did, but it was something that had to be done.
Yeah. We go back to the first question we looked at. We are affected. We suffer consequences of other people's sins sometimes. Even if we are not directly involved ourselves, we suffer those consequences. So, the reason behind this question, there's a lot of people out there say, you can't serve a loving God and have him tell you to destroy entire nations. That's kind of the push that we get sometimes from people who want to deny the God of the Bible. Yeah.
Can't remember if I said it before, but God's power is always exercised in love.
Yes.
Okay? Now, it's the same as it's the same as same as a parent. If they saw their child in danger, and there was one of two choices to save the child, would be to destroy, who it is that's,
Causing the harm.
the child.
Right.
Does that mean that what is done is not in love?
Right.
Okay? Yes, it is done in love.
Absolutely.
Now, for the people, for the family of the individual that lost it, they're not going to see it that way. They're not going to look at it that way. But the bottom line is that still that power, that judgment was still exercised in love. And that's the same thing all the way through the Bible. Everything that God does is rooted in love.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's that simple.
That's right. So how do we answer the people who say that he can't be a loving God, he can't be a merciful God because he commanded the extermination of these people? One of the best known critics of Christianity in the late 1700s, in the early 1800s, Thomas Paine, one of the founding fathers of America, one of the few who did not claim Christianity. He called the God of the Old Testament the Mars of the Jews, the fighting God of Israel. He said he was boisterous, contemptible, and vulgar. 2 centuries later, Richard Dawkins, one of the most famous atheists in recent times, published a book called The God Delusion, which soon became a New York Times bestseller. One of the most oft-quoted phrases from this work. Dawkins calls God a racist, infanticidal, genocidal, capriciously malevolent bully. Critics of the Almighty are fond of repeating the allegation that because of his instruction to kill millions of people in the conquests of Canaan, that the God of the Bible has allegedly shown himself to be unruly, shameful, offensive, genocidal, and evil monster. But like David was pointing out, similar to merciful parents, similar to good principals in schools, to policemen, to judges who justify and administer, or who justly administer punishment, to rule breakers, to evildoers. So can the all-loving, all-knowing creator of the universe. The Canaanite nations were punished because of their extreme wickedness. They practiced abominable customs. They did detestable things. They practiced idolatry and witchcraft and soothsaying and sorcery. They attempted to cast spells upon people and call up the dead. The Canaanite nations were anything but innocent. God is long-suffering. But his long-suffering is not eternal suffering. His patience with impenitent sinners eventually ends. It ended for a wicked world in the days of Noah. It ended for Sodom and Gomorrah in the days of Abram. And it eventually ended for the inhabitants of Canaan, whom God justly destroyed. David.
Going back to what Junior said, the Axis, the Allies, the Allies. Think about, he mentioned, the carbon bombing from Germany and all of that. But let's go a step further. For the love of humanity, for the love of humanity, Hiroshima and Nagasaki took the Allies. That's really the bottom line. They get the same criticism, the Dawkins gives God.
Right.
But we can't control people's thoughts. They're going to have thoughts, and they're going to look at it how they want to look at it.
Yeah.
But the ultimate end, the ultimate drive was the love of humanity and save countless millions more people than we can do at that work.
Right. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
If God had destroyed took action that he did to eliminate what was going on there with the Israelites, we would be sitting here today probably. We would have free religion that we have today to be able to worship as we
Yeah. Yeah. We look at the failure of Israel to do what God said. And the consequences of that. What if they hadn't done any of it? What if he had never commanded it? God would have been forgotten altogether. I mean, he was able to protect through those good people, the good men and women who wanted to serve him. They listened to him and did whatever they could, but the intermarrying that happened between the idolatrous people and the Canaanites and the Israelites, and it was bad enough them disobeying the little bit that they did. So yeah. Yes.
God said, my thoughts are higher than men's
Yeah.
thoughts. What he did showed the wisdom of God. Because if you take a barrel of apples, you have a dabbler in there. You got to get the dabbler out, or it's going to permeate to the rest of it. This is the same thing. You had these other nations doing abominations. They had to be eliminated because they weren't going to change. This guy wrote the book. That's the epitome of the foolishness of men.
Absolutely.
What he wrote.
That's right. That's right. All right, next week we're going to finish up the book of Joshua. We're going to look at chapters 9 through 24. All right, focus in on the questions that are on the papers. If you didn't get one, they are up here on the front pew. Thank you.